Welcome to the What If podcast with your hosts, Spencer Worth Davis and Ryan Copperrood.
What's happening?
What's happening, Spencer?
I've just been thinking about demons and watching The Exorcist. And
boy.
Yeah.
Today on, what if there was a demon inside you? Hi, Eric.
Hello.
We didn't do our normal. I'm Ryan. You're Spencer.
He's Eric.
And you're Eric.
Hello.
AKA Mayson.
Mates dog.
Welcome back, bro.
Thanks, man. It's good to be here.
We get to officially call you serial guest now.
Ooh.
You've been hella on this show.
Yeah, man. I'm a pathological guest. I must be on any episodes you don't have
You just camp outside and be like, hey, you guys recording today? No, it's like totally the opposite. We do that to you. We're like, hey, man, do you want to be on another one?
Mason just actually lives in my house, and we're recording in his bedroom, so...
So you don't have a choice, Mason.
Yeah.
Before we jump into the actual episode,
Yeah.
I just want to real quick give a shout out to everyone that's actually been listening to this thing so far.
Yeah, wow.
Because it's more than zero, which is what I thought it might be.
And honestly, a lot more than zero. So thank you
That's tight.
all very much. Yeah, mm-hmm. I guess we're at a point where we could say that. Thank you guys so much for listening, and to everybody who's left a rating and a review, thank you.
Or subscribed on iTunes or SoundCloud.
Yeah, man, that's amazing. And also, if you want to leave a rating and a review, we would love that. I think we still have some hats to give away.
We do.
If you tweet us at WhatIfPod or at PigCatsBeats or at Ryan Copperrood
or at Bug Cars.
Do you have that too? You should have
no,
that too.
I should.
But if you just leave a rating, a review, and add us, Spencer you can DM him your address and he'll send you a What If hat. But yeah, thank you so much. It's like a lot more people than we thought we're going to give a shit about this.
That's awesome.
We also got our first voicemail that I'm going to play at the end of the show.
Are we? Okay.
Yeah.
All right.
So if you want to leave us a voicemail about any of the stuff that we've talked about so far, or we'll try and give you a heads up on Twitter about like maybe what some upcoming episodes are going to be about. What's that number, Ryan?
That number,
I always forget.
Yeah, that number is 612-246-4614. 612-246-4614. And it'll ring like it's a normal phone number, but it's just a Skype call that I will never answer because you might be a weird person and I might not want to talk to you. But mostly because we want your audio recorded so we can play it on the podcast. But call and leave a message. You can just call and like cuss us out if you want to and tell us we're idiots. And we'll still think that's awesome. So
you just want to like reenact some Jerky Boys bits with your friends, you can prank call us. Anything is fine, really.
Or hi at whatifpodcast.com if you want to leave a show suggestion or anything like that. But yeah, just to echo what Spencer said. Thank you guys for listening. Tell your friends.
All right.
So to the question, what if there was a demon inside you? Mason, you got any exorcism experience?
Well, I have never personally exercised ever.
We can tell.
Exorcised or exorcised?
Never either. Never actually stood up from here. I mean, that's why you had to do it in my bedroom.
It came to you.
I don't, but I do know someone who has claimed that they have been possessed. And obviously I won't say their name or anything, but
sure.
Steve.
Fucking Steve.
You fucking weirdo.
Fucking Steve.
He's always vomiting and spinning his head around in circles. It's weird.
Can you be cool for a second, Steve?
Jesus.
God.
You're like a Pez dispenser or like a
vomit Pez dispenser?
Like
just
a
bricks of
owl
barf?
having a seizure, but
Always telling me my mother is sucking cocks in hell whenever I ask him how his day was.
Anyway, just drink some holy
Steve.
water, Steve.
Yeah. No, I do know someone who has told me stories about things that they refuse to take responsibility for and claim that they have been inhabited by a force that made them do these things.
Okay.
that are pretty. Some of them are like rather innocuous, but a couple of the stories are like pretty horrific.
Eee.
Which is like kind of just a fascinating thing to hear somebody talk about,
Did they talk about how they became uninhabited?
I don't think this person did any sort of ritual or exorcism or anything like that. I kind of think they just believe that people are like these vessels and demons can kind of pass in and out of them. But really, I mean, the way that it reads to me is that it's like you have fucked up a couple times in your life and you were probably wasted or something, and you woke up the next day and decided this was a really convenient
temporarily
story.
possessed.
Yeah, exactly. That like, insulates you from having to like accept responsibility for these horrific things
and or
you've done.
Going to jail.
Or going to jail. Right. No, it wasn't me. It was Scott the Demon.
Hi, officer, I'm Scott the person. That was Scott the Demon.
I have my possession card. I got from the DMV.
Scott the Demon had those 9 drinks and punched that guy in the face.
But I mean, that's what it's like. And talking to this, and he, this person is not super close to me, so I have no problem like kind of trashing the way that this person believes.
Okay.
But when you talk to them, that is how it feels. It's like, no, that, it wasn't me, but this one time my body did this horrible thing, and then I sort of like didn't even witness it. I snapped out of it and was in a room, and there was the remnants of this like horrible deed or whatever, but it wasn't me. I wasn't even like conscious during it.
Yeah.
It's like the demon left me, and then I was just left to sort of suss out what to do about this horrible situation that I found myself in.
Interesting. I mean, to me, like that already screams something I think I will probably get more into later, but like that just sounds exactly like dissociative personality disorder, right? Where you just like,
and that's,
you just physically dissociate your personality from the things you're not happy with or proud of.
Someone pretending to have that as an excuse.
Sure.
I wonder if this is the path that you were going to go down, but say it again, the what
dissociative personality disorder?
Doesn't that sound
pretty sure that's
to the average person who doesn't have a clinical background, doesn't that sound just as alien as the name of some of these demons though? That's it's just an interesting question. I mean, we've now live in a time where like the occult and the sort of like magical spiritualism thing is, we've sort of like killed the demons and became them.
Right.
But, we've replaced them with these sort of like cold clinical names of like for which the treatment is different.
Yes.
But the symptoms are the same.
True, yes.
Being possessed by a demon, having a dissociative personality disorder. It's like it's a very fine line other than the treatment. The treatment is obviously radically different.
Yeah, right.
Well, and
throwing holy water on someone versus...
We don't know the cause necessarily of something like dissociative identity disorder either.
Right.
So it's just like...
and these pills that some people take, or that one might take, it's, how similar is that to some of the sort of shamanistic, here's a root and the powder from a thing and the... the gland from a bat or whatever. I'm not being pejorative. I just mean, these things that you take that have a sort of psychoactive effect on you that feel like something is occurring and you think it's the cure or you think it's the spirit leaving you. I mean, these are just different words for sort of the same sensations.
Yeah, for sure. And I think we have Spencer's ready. You got it?
Well, I figure we might as well jump in with the story that kind of got us, you and me, Ryan, started on this episode path.
Yeah, definitely. Do we need to define exorcisms at all first, or should we just get into the story and go there?
A short, handy definition, go for it.
Yeah, I'd love to hear that.
Yeah, I think we kind of try to start on these sometimes when we, obviously, maybe we should clarify, what if a demon inside of you is, we're talking about exorcisms today, as you've obviously figured out now. We haven't maybe said it verbatim, but...
I like the what if there was a demon inside of you more than what if there was a demon inside you. For some reason, it just sounds a little... funnier.
Okay, a demon inside of you. That's how it'll be written in your iTunes app when it gets you. So just so we all start on the same page. Exorcism, from the Greek exorcismos, which is a binding by oath, is the religious or spiritual practice of purportedly evicting demons or other spiritual entities from a person or an area they are believed to have possessed. Depending on the spiritual beliefs of the exorcist, this may be done by causing the entity to swear an oath, performing an elaborate ritual, or simply by commanding it to depart in the name of a higher power. The practice is ancient and part of the belief system of many cultures and religions.
Or if it's the end of The Exorcist, you just punch the 12-year-old girl in the face a couple times and yell at her.
And then jump out a window.
And then dive bomb your ass out the window.
Well, Hollywood always got to dramatize everything.
Spoilers for anyone who hasn't seen The Exorcist.
I finished watching The Exorcist for the first time about 10 minutes before we started recording this podcast.
And I watched the 10 minutes of the end of the movie.
Shockingly, Ryan has never seen The Exorcist.
Guys, guess what? I haven't seen a movie.
I gotta be honest, I don't think I have either.
Really? You've never seen it?
Oh, man.
Yeah.
I've always heard about how fucked up that movie is, but it's really fucked up.
I mean, the last 5 minutes. You told me about another couple scenes, which I don't know that we need to like risk.
That was my favorite
Yo,
part.
BDD. Hey, BDD, get out of here! I'm exercising you, you fuck. You and your dick.
You're
get
not
the
welcome
fuck out.
here.
Oh my
Take that thing elsewhere.
I was literally about to say a sentence. I mean, I don't even know if we need to get into it all, but here we are. Yeah, goddamn, if the ending was any indication.
Yeah, it's pretty heavy.
Just one thing before you get into your story that I wanted to say that for me was new, and this is obviously going to scream ignorance, but it's true, is that I always thought, and maybe this is because there's a pop culture connection to exorcism, which is primarily The Exorcist, which is to the Catholic faith. But I actually didn't realize that culturally and religiously, this is a very widespread concept in multiple different cultures and religions. And there are different names for it and different rituals and practices around it. Mm-hmm. I don't know. I felt like an asshole when I realized it. But of course, if religion is such a widespread cultural thing as it is, of course, there would be different systems of.
How else do you explain people acting fucky? It's gotta be possession.
Wasn't my fault.
Yeah,
it's got the devil in him. Get that devil out. He's being weird.
All
right, cool, man. So what you got for us?
Well, we started this conversation after you started watching Hostage to the Devil on Netflix.
That did happen.
Which is a documentary about a one-time Catholic priest named Malachi Martin.
Malachi Martin.
And
weird guy.
Yeah, very weird guy who in the movie the documentary was made after his death, but basically it's the story of this man who was a priest and an exorcist who was born in Ireland, practiced in Rome for a long time, was trained in Rome, and then moved to New York in I believe the 60s, and claimed to have performed many exorcisms, and eventually died in, what was it, early 2000s? 01 or 02 or something?
Yeah, that sounds about right. I don't have it up, but I can pull it up.
After he claimed to have been pushed off of a ladder in his home by a demon who he had begun to exorcise from a young girl just the day before.
Yes.
He totally was not just a 78-year-old man who fell in his house. He was definitely at the end of a lifelong battle with this one demon who had followed him throughout his life.
Yeah, 99, but yes. He died in 99.
99, okay. And a lot of people have differing opinions of Father Martin. There were a couple of his colleagues that are interviewed throughout the documentary that say, you know, he was this miracle worker and this amazing priest, and he helped and saved so many people. There's the one really old, cranky guy with the oxygen tubes in his nose talking about how Father Martin fucked his wife.
Whoa. You gotta
get the demon out.
Oh, man.
I had to just, you know.
His wife was possessed by the big dick demon a couple times.
Man.
Oh, no.
You gotta watch this documentary.
It's pretty good.
It's pretty good. It's pretty weird in parts, but it's pretty good.
So after watching that, or actually while watching that, I ordered his book of the same name, Hostage to the Devil, on Amazon and started reading it. So the book, he wrote a book in 1976, or it came out in 1976. That was basically a compilation of case studies of possessions and exorcisms that he had witnessed or partaken in over his career.
Worked on as a guy.
Yeah.
And it was like in multiple places too, right? Like it was both while he
primarily worked in New York.
Yeah.
And didn't really gain popularity as an exorcist until he moved to the US.
I thought it was really fascinating that he was one of the original translators on the Dead Sea Scrolls, which is not necessarily relevant to the whole exorcism topic, but it is to me it like significantly legitimized him as
he's a relevant religious authority.
Yeah, he's a scholar, he's a priest, he obviously has enough of like a background in both like religion and the Bible and language to sort of be respected by the Vatican to be placed in that role.
Was that ever verified though?
Yeah, they acknowledge that.
Okay, because one of the sticking points in the film was after he left Rome in like the 60s or 70s, the Vatican claimed he had left the church. He was no longer a priest. But he continued to act as one for the next 30 some years.
Yeah, the Dead Sea Scroll work he did was before that.
Okay.
So it was before.
And that's legit. That's not just him saying, I did this.
He's published over 24 articles in various journals about the archaeological work that he did as it relates to the Dead Sea Scrolls.
He's got kind of this, after reading his book, and actually after watching The Exorcist, there's some weird tie-ins, and he's got sort of this like Indiana Jones vibe going too. Which
that's relevant to the exorcism thing, right? I mean, that's
right.
King Solomon and
I thought it was an interesting tie-in after watching The Exorcist too, because the priest who's brought in to do the exorcism in that movie, the movie starts with a like straight out of Indiana Jones shot of him at an archaeological dig in Iraq, and he digs up this statue of this demon-looking thing, and he like gets all flustered and almost has a heart attack and flees and leaves the dig because it's some horrible bad omen or something.
Jun, jun, jun.
And they call this I can't remember his name, Father What's-His-Nuts, back from Iraq to do this exorcism. And so, I don't know, the book came out in 1976, 3 years after The Exorcist. He's basically telling stories that could be lifted from The Exorcist. He's claiming a lot of his background and his history seem like maybe they're not totally true, and maybe he was playing off the popularity and the pop culture aspects of possession and exorcism in the 70s.
Yeah, I mean,
what channels were those? I mean, not literally television channels, but like how does one gain notoriety in exorcism circles? What does that mean?
Well, I mean, like he wrote a New York Times best-selling book about being this all-star exorcist 3 years after The Exorcist became the highest-grossing R-rated movie ever.
Interesting.
Although there is evidence of evidence is a weird way to say it, but like there are many people who have worked with him on exorcisms and who speak to their work, like participating in exorcism with him, etc.
Yeah, I'm not trying to totally discredit. I'm just saying there's definitely no consensus around this dude.
Sure, I guess I could also, and I'm a little bit playing devil's advocate right now.
Yeah.
Oh boy, honestly, that one was not intentional. But to play devil's advocate,
go to hell, Ryan.
I'm already there. No. I do think there's also like I think the controversy around the dude is, were you this guy or were you a phony who was trying to make money off of this trend, or is there some sort of gray area in between where you had like some of this professional history? Yeah, impossible to have consensus on. I also think it's interesting too that I saw, and maybe this is a lie is born, but I saw something about when I was on the Google, basically around the time of the exorcism coming out, like around the book and then through to the movie, that the cited and reported instances of possession and committed exorcisms increased by like 50%.
No way.
So there being sort of generally a cultural trend, moving towards that concept, maybe gave him sort of a space to become who he became, which is sort of like you said, like this celebrity rock star exorcist, which is a weird thing to be in general, I guess.
Well, yeah, and I don't know how much it was, having not been born until 13 years after the movie came out, like, I don't know how much a part of pop culture that concept was before the movie.
Yeah, good question.
At least in the U.S., like I think it had a lot to do with popularizing that idea, that practice, that part of Catholicism, with popularizing the Ouija board. Mm-hmm. It's implied in that movie that the demon is let in because they used a Ouija board, which I don't know if that was necessarily a widely held belief before that movie.
Did you know that like Ouija boards are just like it's like legit a children's toy sold by a children's toy
Hasbro?
company? Yeah,
Right.
I think it is.
Yeah.
I think it's
Hasbro's
literally
the
Hasbro.
demon inviting. Yeah,
I mean-
like door to hell gateway.
Well, that's what I'm saying.
unlocking.
It was always just this like goofy game until its role in that movie when it took on the much more ominous tone that then we all grew up in.
You just turn the lights off and play
Yeah.
Ouija. It's a very different experience.
Did you, one more quick fun Ouija fact, did you know that the game named itself?
Is that true?
Yeah.
They had to go through a couple iterations.
Is that just a
'cause
good marketer who was like, this would
Jern.
be a cool story? We
Can't prove it's not true.
First couple drafts were like, Zercock. Nah, I better do another one. Zertsianet. Oh, it doesn't really roll off the tongue.
All right.
We'll keep going.
So one of the case studies, in quotes, from Hostage to the Devil by Malachi Martin was about a young woman named Mary Ann, who was 26 years old, and she became possessed while living in New York City in the 60s.
That'll do it.
Yeah, damn hippies moving to the city.
She smoked weed and got the devil in her.
So it focuses mostly on this priest who did the exorcism.
This is Malachite, that dude?
So this is from Malachi Martin's book.
He's not the one doing this.
He is not the one doing the exorcism. He is reporting on another priest who did an exorcism that he apparently witnessed. So this priest, Father Peter, was an Irish priest who moved to New York City. He did his first exorcism at age 34 in Hoboken, New Jersey. And as he was doing the exorcism, the man who he was exorcising / the demon that he was exorcising shouted at him, "You think you're escaping? Don't worry, you'll be back for more, and we will scorch the soul in you. You'll smell just like us. Third strike and you're out. Remember us."
Woof.
Yeah. He finishes this exorcism. The demon on its way out is like, "Fuck you, 2 more exorcisms from now and I'm going to get you." And after 13 hours, the demon left, and Peter is like, "All right, cool. Nailed it. 1 for 1. Got my first demon." In 1952, he performed his second exorcism, also in Jersey, this time in Jersey City.
Oh, boy.
And this one lasted for 3 days.
Wow.
He was again successful, so he's 2 for 2, and actually kept in touch with the young man who he exorcised for the rest of his life, and they had like this eternal bond because the guy was very thankful to him for saving his life. 10 years later, he takes a 10-week trip to Rome to study with his priest bros, and he meets this guy, Father Connor, who had performed tons of exorcisms and was one of the highest ranked exorcists in the Catholic Church.
Okay.
And he studies with this dude for 10 weeks and learns about how to become a better exorcist and how to say all the right prayers and when to not get tricked by demons. And
This is in where?
this is in Rome.
This is in Rome.
Yep,
Okay.
Yep. So he learns all about demon social skills and when to, avoid their big dicks.
Or
And-
Always.
Well,
when to? Always.
that's what he learned.
Short chapter.
Forever.
So he returns to New York, and his third and final exorcism
Jump, jump, jump.
was of a young woman named Mary Ann. This woman, Mary Ann, she was 26 at the time that she ended up being exorcised by Father Peter. She grew up in New York, had a fairly normal childhood, growing up with her parents and her brother, super close to her family, lived with them even when she started attending college in New York. Raised Catholic, attended a Catholic college. And when she got to college, started questioning a lot of the stuff that she had been raised on and, a lot of the teachings of the church and stuff. But she was at a Catholic college, so she got into a lot of confrontations with her professors, and they all thought she was kind of weird, and she didn't get along with a lot of the students there because she was just kind of figuring out, like, Catholicism is maybe not for me.
If you have doubt, you're a terrible person,
Right.
and you don't belong here.
Right. And
Says much of religion.
I would imagine living in Manhattan, like, you're being exposed to a lot of other things that definitely aren't that, and she decided to not attend a Catholic university anymore.
Okay.
Sometime in her early 20s, she's sitting in a park reading a book, and she said she suddenly felt a presence behind her, as if someone was like standing behind her reading over her shoulder. She doesn't recall what this person looked like, only that he had a permanent smile across his face. It's like very blank expression other than this big grin on his face.
She sensed the presence of a person who was smiling.
No, she sensed that someone was standing behind her and then turned.
And there was a person.
Yeah.
Gotcha.
But she can't recall any other details about this person other than the grin on his face.
Creepy.
So it was sort of this, I pictured it being like in a dream state where you have a dream and you know that a person represents a specific person.
But it's like not that person.
But you can't actually identify any details about them. You know what I mean?
Yep.
Right.
But I thought the grinning man thing was really interesting because that comes up in a lot of other like paranormal stories. Like if you Google grinning man, you will get a whole heap of weird ghost, paranormal, UFO stories.
Doing it. Good. Googly moogly.
The grinning man shows up at a lot of UFO sites. There's a story of the
super don't do that at all. Oh boy. Okay. Oh. For what it's worth, like Google's job is to represent the meanings of a phrase, and I just searched for grinning man, and it is like the image search is all of the creepiest fucking things you've ever seen. Dude, all right. Sorry. Very quick deviation to like this is what comes up when you search for grinning man on fucking Google. We'll show note it. It's fucking yuck, dude. These are weird.
So this man stays with her in the park for about an hour. And just like talking and hanging out with her. And the last thing he says to her is, "Seek those of the kingdom. They will know you and you will know them." And he leaves.
Could you be more vague? Thanks, man.
Obviously the kingdom of Satan, Mason. Duh.
Thanks for the heads up, I guess.
So after this
Kingdom
point
of burgers? So many kingdoms.
She had already started withdrawing from like social activities. She dropped out of school. She was distancing herself from her family and her parents.
This is like after this incident occurred.
It had been happening before.
Tandem?
It accelerated after this incident.
Okay.
To the point where she was not interacting with like anyone on a daily basis.
Okay.
She would stay in her apartment or she would leave to go to the park and read and then go right back to her apartment.
She's looking for that grin, yo.
Right. Her parents became concerned about her and tried to get her to visit a couple psychiatrists, which she did, and who both said that she was fine and healthy. But she started doing really weird stuff. Which...
As if hunting for never mind.
Right. Well, doing things like her parents brought her food to her apartment because they were worried about her, and they knew that she like didn't leave her apartment. So they brought a box of food over. She wouldn't come to the door to meet them. They left the box of food on her front porch. She took it in, shit in it for a week, and then put it back out on the front porch.
What a terrible person.
I feel like the soundboard has two sounds today. It's just that one kid.
This kid is not into it.
Oh, I'm sorry. I'm sorry.
Jesus.
And at this point in the story, I'm wondering, like, okay, she's hearing things, seeing things,
shitting things,
shitting on things.
Well,
not
shitting
talking to
is
people.
how you conjure one of the demons.
We'll get to that later.
Wait, is that for real thing?
Yeah. That was Mason's research.
Oh boy,
He was just googling shit demon earlier.
Yeah, it's the laziest way I can conjure a demon.
Well, I'm
What's
already
something
shitting.
I do every day.
Mason was on the toilet googling demons.
That's a big demon. It's a spicy demon tonight.
There's one demon for things that come out of your butt, and one for things that go in your butt.
Oh boy. Oh boy. We're off the rails.
Okay.
Whole programs.
So at this point in the story, I'm thinking like, okay, this woman's in her early 20s. She's hearing things. She's seeing things. She's acting really weird. She's withdrawing from society. Like a lot of things that would, to me, predict mental illness.
Yeah, I mean,
Like
I don't.
schizophrenia specifically.
I don't know how visiting two psychologists they were like, nah, you're good.
Right. Well, they probably didn't see her shitting on sandwiches and stuff.
Well,
Right.
I guess, but still, like,
Sometimes if you feel like something's wrong and then doctors tell you nothing's wrong, you want to make something wrong.
I do that.
You know,
Yeah.
you're like, you don't tell me I'm fine. I'm not fine.
After that, she developed an aversion to anything religious. And instead of reading at the park, she spent most of her time making crosses out of twigs and then sticking them in the ground upside down.
Whoa.
She told.
So it wasn't like she needed to avoid religious things. She was like an anti-theist.
Well, both.
Got you.
Yeah.
She needed to create symbols of her hatred for
It wasn't enough for her to just react negatively to like pro-Christian things.
Right.
She needed to flip crosses upside down in the park.
So I want to get to where our buddy, our third strike buddy, meets her.
We're getting there.
Okay.
So she totally stops interacting with people.
Wait, can I interrupt you? I just really want you to keep telling the story, dude. I can't wait till you keep talking.
Heck.
Bjork. Blork.
Orf.
That dog just died.
What?
Yeah, I just saw it.
R.I.P. Dog Source.
Yeah.
Pour one out for Dog Source if you're listening.
Heck.
Oh, man. Oh, man.
All right. Back to the story that you wanted to hear, Ryan.
I do.
She totally stopped interacting with other people. Like, not even, like, she would go into the store. She would not speak to anyone. She would put stuff down on the counter, put money down on the counter, get her ass out of there. Like, would not talk to anyone. Except for strangers that she would pass that she thought had also perfectly withdrawn into themselves, as she put it.
That's awesome.
Also, super a sign of schizophrenia.
Huh.
When you think you can read other people's thoughts and or people's thoughts are being projected onto yours and vice versa. I had a friend who...
Today I learned I have schizophrenia.
Oh.
I had a friend who
So that's what this is.
was diagnosed with schizophrenia who, the day he realized that something was up, he spent an entire 3-hour lecture course trying not to think because he was convinced that everyone else in the room could read his thoughts whenever he had them.
Huh.
Whoa. Yeah.
Wouldn't that be a funny superpower if your superpower was everyone can hear your thoughts?
Wasn't there a Mel Gibson movie about that?
Oh, What Women Want?
Or was that?
No, that was him reading women's thoughts.
That makes more sense, I guess.
But if you had the inverse,
what
if your
Mel wants?
your shitty superpower is everywhere you go, you're the only
I
person
need a woman.
who can have all of their thoughts read.
What Mel wants is
That sounds like a horrible racist
oh
movie.
boy, I was gonna start making a list and then I realized
Well,
that was
if
a
it
bad
was just
idea.
the character of that movie, it would just be sex, 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 sex.
Heck.
Things are just tumbling downhill.
Sounds like.
And one day in the park, she has an experience that she described as, quote, like a net tightening around her person that opened up every secret part of herself, like saying yes to a power that would not take no for an answer.
Wow, she's very poetic.
Next line is one of the most poetic things I've ever heard, actually. She says it felt like falling in love with the jaws of a crocodile.
Wow.
Yeah.
That's beautiful.
Yeah, Marianne had some shit going for her
That's
through
terrible.
all the crazy. Yeah,
It's
well,
terrifying.
right.
Will you read that again?
Which part? The whole thing?
The whole thing? The net.
She
around
described it as a net tightening around her person that opened up every secret part of herself, like saying yes to a power that would not take no for an answer, or like falling in love with the jaws of a crocodile.
Wow.
Can I just?
Sounds like Vonnegut.
Yeah, this is a little Vonnegut, isn't it? Can I be a little skeptical right now? Doesn't sound like after everything we've learned about Marianne that she didn't come out of this entire experience being like, and that day I felt like I was this very poetic thing. Is this just the guy who?
Well, she obviously has an interesting mind.
Well, all I'm saying is this is written in a bestseller, heard from a guy who we think might be making up stories for the shine of it, and heard from another priest who had this third party experience. Right?
Yeah.
To the point of, I mean, not to subtract the poetry from this.
I'm not
terrifying
vouching
story.
for Malachi's stories at all. Yeah.
I know you're not. I just am saying, should we give Marianne the credit for all that poetry, or is this 3 times removed and written for the purposes of being in a bestseller?
The one thing I will give credit to Father Martin for, he's a very good writer. Like, that book is a damn good read, and there's a reason it was a bestseller.
Sure.
So, to your point, it wouldn't actually surprise me if he wrote or at least embellished some of it, because he is a very good writer.
Right.
Malachi Martin talks about people that were perfectly possessed, in quotes. That's a phrase that he used a lot and comes up in the documentary a lot.
That doesn't feel right.
Meaning that they no longer had free will, that the demon had totally taken over their person and they were not in control of what they were doing at all anymore. He also thought that in order for this to happen, though, that the person had to at some point give their consent.
I've heard about that.
Well, that is actually...
There's like 5, there's like environmental possession, mental possession, emotional possession, physical possession, and then free will possession.
And he believed for that reason that a child could never be, quote, perfectly possessed, because he didn't feel that children were capable of making that decision. Like they weren't able to give their consent because they weren't able to understand what was happening.
They could maybe be partially possessed, but not perfectly possessed.
Exactly. Yeah.
And I believe to some extent that is not just a Father Malachi.
No, that's something I read in the Grimorium or whatever that.
I think
book.
that concept is prevalent throughout Catholicism. I think that specific phrasing might have been his. But
yeah,
right, that concept comes up in lots of places.
Yeah, and to your point, Mayson, I think I have heard that concept elsewhere as well. So.
But so I think that story is in there specifically to make that point of like, maybe this was the moment where she gave consent, even if it wasn't fully something she wanted to do. She felt like she didn't have a choice and gave into it at that moment.
Okay.
Eventually, her family agrees to have her exorcised because shit is just getting worse and worse. She stinks. She's not bathing. She's lost 45 pounds in the span of like 2 months.
She keeps shitting in these Simon Deliver boxes we keep trying to send to her.
Oh no!
And they get in touch with Father Peter, who's called in to do this exorcism, and he's now 62 years old. And in addition to all this other stuff, she's now started speaking in supposedly foreign languages. So she's speaking in Hebrew and Latin, which are languages that apparently she does not know or does not speak. Having studied at a Catholic university, I wonder if she couldn't at least recite some Hebrew and or Latin.
Yeah.
Also, did the people who were witnessing this know Hebrew and Latin?
Well, it was the priest who recorded it. So in theory,
so
yes, he recognized it as such and recognized like specific prayers and stuff that she was, or not prayers, but like the
phrases.
She was like mockingly quoting scripture and stuff back at him.
Mm-hmm.
But that could be simply reciting things she had heard.
Well, and there is that one demon that if you get possessed by, teaches you how to speak all the languages of the world, but only the most foul and horrible words in those languages.
Only racial and ethnic slurs.
Yeah, and swear words.
Wait, is this a thing?
Yeah, there's a real demon that if you get possessed by, you become literate in all languages, but you only know the swear word, like the terrible words. So you're both educated and very lewd.
We're at the best part of the story, and it's short. Can I finish it?
Yes.
Yeah. Okay.
Can I finish?
So they agree to do this exorcism, and Father Peter comes in to do it. There's an assistant, because by rule there has to be 4 people there. There has to be a primary priest, a secondary priest in case the first one dies, and 2 assistants to restrain the person, one of whom must be a family member.
Heck.
Peter starts doing the exorcism along with the assistance of 3 other people. And there's all the crazy shit that you imagine exorcisms being. She's speaking in foreign languages. She's speaking in a bunch of different voices. She's writhing and thrashing around on the bed. There are objects flying across the room. There's a dresser that
the moon.
Objects flying across the moon.
It's E.T.
There's a
spoiler alert. It's E.T.
There's a dresser that slides across the floor at one point. The exorcism goes on for almost 24 hours in this little Manhattan apartment. And
damn, those neighbors were pissed.
Right? And the exorcism is successful, as we probably learned because Marianne was telling parts of the story. But she successfully exorcised. However, Father Peter, 2 days later, dies of a heart attack. Fulfilling the prophecy of his first exorcism, in which the demon said, 3 strikes and you're out. We're coming for that ass.
Yikes.
Wow.
So,
Does she, like, for as far as we're aware, is she fine? She's good? She lived a life of safety and sanity, and that was all it took?
at least between 1960. So that supposedly happened in 1965. The book was written in 76. So she made it 11 years at least.
In order
that book is now 40 years old, so who knows?
And
she'd be in her 70s.
And we do know that, I mean, I'm sorry, I didn't read the book, but like, do we know that was he asking her questions? Are there quotes from her in there? Or,
yeah, there are quotes from her throughout the story.
There are.
Yeah.
So he's not just
like
saying, this guy told me this story.
Bullshit.
Oh, okay.
Those are direct quotes, yeah.
Okay. Because I was under the impression that he was just telling a story that guy had told him.
This is, if we're believing Father Martin, these are firsthand accounts.
I see.
Just imagine if you were so, like, if you had trouble adjusting to society in such an incredible way, like this person did, where you're like that, you really can't see a way of rejoining the societal narrative. You've like cut off all ties. You're alone. You're going kind of crazy. You know, your parents have a weird relationship with you. You know, and then one day you spend 24 hours writhing in your bed, screaming in tongues while strangers scream at you. I imagine that would be an incredibly cathartic experience for anyone that was feeling weird.
Well, and maybe that's your out too.
Right.
Maybe all is forgiven at that point because now you weren't responsible for any of it.
I think I would feel better after doing something like that. If I had 4 people standing in my room, like, you know, family members and straight just screaming at me, and I got to just like,
and you could say
fucking
right, you can say whatever you want to.
That would probably be incredibly cathartic.
You're also probably, to some extent, if you've extracted yourself from a narrative that you grew up on that was probably foundational to you in a lot of ways, like religion is for a lot of people.
Maybe like vaguely oppressive.
And you've rebelled against that probably mentally and physically and emotionally in so many different ways. Part of that catharsis might also be like a forced rejoining or sort of a reacceptance of that narrative back into your foundation. Do you know what I'm saying?
I can see part. Yeah, I mean, who knows what this person was feeling? I think that probably has something to do with it. But I think if you remove the cultural significance of religion from the action of writhing and screaming in your bed in front of strangers for 24 hours.
Yeah.
I mean, regardless of what is being said,
right,
or what purpose this is serving, it's like. You as a 26-year-old woman don't get a lot of opportunities to just like flail and scream, like generally in society that's frowned upon.
Right,
but it's something that we kind of desperately need to do in order to stay sane. It's some people more than others need to just sometimes and run around the room,
or tell your uncle to go fuck himself 300 times in one day.
Right. But if you grow up in and I'm not. Again, not being pejorative, but if you grow up in like a vaguely oppressive religious upbringing where you're taught to sort of be still and quiet, and not that has anything to do with religion, but some Catholic schools are like that.
Most schools are like that.
That, you know, I could see that sort of activity as being like a dance. It's like it's like any sort of physically cathartic experience. It sounds like really intense and passionate.
Yeah.
It'll probably feel good.
Yeah. I mean, yeah, it would be an expelling of probably negative energy and maybe all of your energy to the point of sheer exhaustion. I mean,
there's something about just like shouting in a nonsensical way and moving in a nonsensical way. It's like the word hallelujah. It's like, it doesn't really have a meaning. It's just like wah, where you want to just like, I'm alive and I'm celebrating it in a really like abstract, nonsensical way. Like the nonsense. It's like when people in churches speak in tongues. It's like that looks and sounds creepy, but it feels good to do. It's like it feels good to just do just the nonsense. Like, oh, I don't know. I'm living in this really logical structure, this Western like rational humanist structure that I don't feel like at my core doesn't match with how I feel. I want to be a running and screaming child. You know, then like that kind of experience can do a lot of good for people.
Totally.
You know,
it's interesting.
Let's take a quick break.
Yeah, let's take a quick break. I know you have more exorcism stories. I got a couple of like questions and just general thoughts I want to talk about. And yeah,
we can take a dive into some possible explanations for what's going on if it's not the demon of the Sabbath possessing your body.
Right, because I do think there's a lot of interesting stuff about what things may or may not be, or combinations of what they may be.
Cool. Let's take a quick break, and then we'll dive into some or all of that.
So we'll be right back with the What If Podcast.
God damn it!
We want to hear from you. Send us a message. Email hi, that's hi, at whatifpodcast.com. Or leave us a voicemail at 612-246-4614. And now, back to the What If Podcast.
I know you guys haven't seen it, but in The Exorcist, when she projectile gack vomits onto the dude's
Just
face,
scream puke.
I was watching this movie, and it was actually freaking me out
Did you almost barf?
because I was watching this by myself. Like, I'm the only person in my house watching it right before I went to bed last night, which is probably a bad idea. But when it gets to that point and she vomits, projectile vomits the green goo into the dude's face,
Yeah.
I burst out laughing at that shit.
There's nothing funnier than scream puking. It's the funniest thing. You don't look down. You just have your mouth forward and you just, ha! Ha! That's good.
And the dude is politely takes his glasses off and is
Okay, well, that's fine.
Yes, I'm going to keep reading this prayer at
That's
you, possessed
normal.
little bitch.
Everybody pukes, honey. Everybody scream pukes.
Today we're talking about what if a puppy made of rainbows became your best friend forever. No, we're not, but I did want to take us away. So there are many a scientific reason why this entire phenomenon is not actually what religion thinks it is, right? I mean, and we've kind of talked about some of them, but combinations of a bunch of different mental illnesses could be compiled to exhibit all of these same characteristics, right?
Sure.
I mean,
I guess it just begs the question: what's the difference between a quote unquote mental illness and demonic possession?
I
one
think
of them is religiously based in the way that we look at it as being caused by an entity that is
So
anti.
the sort of language around it is different.
Well,
Or
sure.
the cultural context around it is different. But
Yeah, I would say scientific explanation in terms of psychology and what's actually occurring in the brain versus
which is also something we're equally fuzzy about. Just to be
No doubt.
just to be clear, we don't have any idea what the fuck's happening in our own brain.
yeah, most of the time. yes.
Our guess as to what is causing things that you could say are symptomatic of demonic possessions is probably equally as off base as shamans
That's a good point.
and witch doctors are.
That's a good point.
If you fast forward 1,000 years, the things we'll know then. I mean, neuroscience is a very young science still.
That is wild.
I think
about.
at the heart of it, Mason's point is is it maybe just a different name for the same set of symptoms?
Different name and different treatment.
We
yeah.
still don't know what the cause is. And there are lots of medical conditions that we try and treat and we have names for, and you go to a doctor to alleviate, but we don't know what the cause is.
And we don't know why some of the treatments are effective either.
Right. We don't know still what causes cancer. We don't know what causes autism.
Which in some circles, I think we tend to think about possession as sort of an antiquated thing. But in a lot of circles, people still feel like cancer is a demonic possession and that the treatment for it is exorcism. And there are testimonies far and wide of people who have been cured of cancer after exorcisms.
And there are how many thousands of people on a weekly or monthly basis or whatever who die after being treated for cancer from a Western perspective. Chemotherapy doesn't fix
this
cancer.
Also sort of trespasses on a different realm of physical science, where you have a tumor as a physical object, whereas you could say that mental illness is physical properties from chemicals in your brain, but it doesn't have something you can necessarily see in an X-ray in the same way as a tumor does.
I think that's where possession gets interesting, though, because there's that overlap.
That's right. There's the physical
when
possession.
When you get to things like the writing appearing on the skin, which again can be explained in a more scientific way, or a more from a medical perspective.
Is that a thing?
Yeah. Like I forget the name for it, but there is a condition, a skin condition where if you apply pressure to the skin, it will create a raised, like a raised area wherever that pressure was applied.
What?
So if you were to take, for instance, a pencil and across your forearm with the pencil, just lightly pressing down and write something, wherever you applied pressure, it would raise up. And honestly, like, yeah, it looks pretty crazy.
Well, yeah, y'all didn't see my face. I just did a real bad Google.
What's the medical term for it?
Dermatographic urticaria.
Okay.
Oh shit. Yeah, something like that. I'm gonna say I was about a B- on that read.
And this is this is where it gets interesting to me, because like any one piece of the things that are reported around possession could be explained in a more quote unquote medical way, like writing appearing on the skin. Yes, there are instances where we can explain that. Someone speaking in tongues, someone convulsing, someone hallucinating. Like, we can explain all of those things individually. I think where it gets weird is where you start seeing or reading or hearing reports of a bunch of these things happening at the same time.
Sure.
Yeah.
There's
like
no
a
one
concentrated
explanation that can encompass all of that.
Right.
Just to offer one that's not brought up very often, because you like Tourette's could explain the vocal outbursts or the different like vocal intonations and stuff.
Right.
Schizophrenia could explain some of the visual and auditory hallucinations,
as well
whatever
as
the hell you just said that started with derma something could explain the writing on the skin.
Dissociative identity. It could be responsible for legitimately actually believing that you are indeed someone or something,
or speaking in the personality or the perspective of multiple people.
Right.
And there's the whole theme of like, it's not one demon, it's many, and we are one, and all this stuff that comes up throughout many different reports.
Right.
One that doesn't get mentioned very often is ergot poisoning. You guys ever heard of this?
No.
Give it a Google. Put it in your Googler.
I'm just over here getting my mind blown by the Googler every like 15 minutes in this podcast.
And I'm fucking up by not having the good googly moogly sound bite ready to go.
Googly moogly. I can be a soundboard.
That's actually all we need.
I can be a soundboard.
Hey, there you go. Okay, so ergot poisoning, it's a fungus that can grow on rye, barley, or
I have
wheat.
heard of this.
So it's a fungus that grows on a few different plants. The symptoms, if it's consumed, include convulsions, psychosis, vomiting, skin lesions, and if left untreated and in extreme cases, can have hallucinogenic effects. It's actually the LSD was originally derived from this fungus.
Oh, sure.
So you look at possession, convulsions, that definitely fits. Could be maybe exaggerated into being levitation or some of the really like out there things that you hear about.
Yeah.
Psychosis could cover a bunch of different parts of it. Vomiting, green goo, skin lesions, and hallucinating. I mean, that would cover a lot of it.
Totally.
And it's actually,
especially if you were unaware of what was happening to you.
right.
Oh my God,
If
right?
if it wasn't something that sort of like became apparent over years and years and years, but just happened one afternoon.
It could be very sudden. Yeah. The one area where it breaks down is that it would probably be multiple people experiencing similar effects.
They're eating from the same stores.
But what I was thinking about when I was reading about this the other day was it could, in theory, affect children more than it would adults. Right? Just like you're getting a higher dose of it, or you're at a different stage in development or whatever.
Your immune system isn't as strong yet, or
right? Because I mean, how many of the possession cases that we hear about, like how many of them are children?
I was going to say that it's almost
and especially
all
young girls,
parents calling priests.
Right.
It's parents who, which is an
When's
interesting.
the last time a 70-year-old man has been possessed?
It's a very interesting parallel.
That's real.
Between, I think we like stumbled on this sort of like juxtaposition between mental health and how it's how it's sort of talked about and thought about in the Western world in modern times versus the idea of possession, where you have, parents calling priests in, I don't know how to deal with my kid. My kid's crazy. I think he's possessed. Similarly
I think he ate some
with
bad wheat.
Right. Similarly with maybe like you could say a lot of these cases are women because husbands don't know how to deal with women who don't listen to them or who, it's like the witch hunt thing in Salem. It's like,
okay, so
these women.
The leading theory on what was actually going on in Salem was ergot poisoning.
Interesting.
Yeah.
Cool.
I did just find that in my Googler here.
I think it has a parallel to what I would see as a problem in this country, which is the over medication of children whose parents don't know how to handle them. It's a similar thing. It's like saying, if saying, well, schizophrenia could account for certain types of demonic possessions, how is saying schizophrenia accounting for anything? I mean, that is a word that is used to prescribe a group of symptoms. So is I was possessed by Erethin or whoever. I mean, that is also a word or a group of words used to prescribe a group of symptoms. Both
they
of
just
which
have different treatments.
They just have different treatments, right? Because does saying, well, it's schizophrenia, does that satisfy you intellectually anymore? Do you know any more of what's going on internally than you would if someone just told you it was a demon?
It depends on your cultural context. If I'm raised Catholic, no.
But that's also why Catholic families, when a child exhibits a certain set of personalities, their brain says, because exorcisms haven't been, even though they've been popularized, like we talked about, like around the 70s, when that movie and the book, or when was the book? 60?
It was 73 and 76. So
okay,
very close, yeah.
So in the 70s, when the concept was more popularized, did we say this on the podcast or was it before it started?
I don't know what you're trying to say.
That when those things hit the media,
right.
that there was an increase in reports of possession and exorcism.
Well, because
cases
isn't that how it works?
Like 50%.
If it's a popular idea out in the world that this is a thing that's possible or this is a thing in the zeitgeist,
right?
It's just like seeing a depression commercial. Like, are you having trouble talking to your friends? You might have Dixloflaxloliosis.
Right.
Restless leg syndrome is not a real thing.
Yeah, right. No, honestly though, is
there any other reason that people think that they have these disorders other than being berated by these commercials and
it's a great parallel, and I think you could sort of find the treatments to be the same thing, right? If your kid or someone in your family is exhibiting these characteristics,
those characteristics are basically you don't fit into society.
Sure,
in one way or the other, you're acting in such a way that's like not normal. And I don't know how to deal with it.
I think in a lot of these cases it goes further than that, though, that you're harming yourself or someone else also.
Sure. Okay.
Or you are I guess that's best. You're harming yourself or someone else, or to the extent with which you are no longer capable as an individual of like caring for yourself, etc.
Sure.
That I think leads into not being able to take care of yourself. But I think to your point, if your brain has been told that if X, Y, or Z things are happening, they are probably the cause of X, then you call a Catholic priest and say, my son is possessed with a demon and I need you to come and get the demon out. Or
it is interesting though that it crosses cultural boundaries, and other religions and other cultures have a similar version of the same process.
Which I think is worth noting that, and we talked about this a little bit at the beginning when I mentioned my ignorant surprise that exorcism is a thing in multiple cultures. But I guess to me, again, the pop culture idea we associate very specifically with the Catholic Church.
Well, we as Americans, raised in the 80s and 90s do, yeah.
But the fact that there are rites and rituals and sort of prescriptive practices that relate to Hinduism and Islam and Judaism,
Buddhism,
and
Taoism.
There are elements of this concept being present in a lot of different cultures and
Wicca,
a lot of different
shamanism,
and that's where
Africa, Asia, it's everywhere.
Wait, if you're Wiccan, and does that mean you worship the devil?
I don't know enough about that.
I don't either, actually. Which one is where you like straight up worship the devil?
Satanist.
Yeah.
Okay, so if you're a Satanist, and you get possessed by the devil, aren't you psyched?
Probably.
Are you like, I did it?
What if you get possessed by the working weekends demon?
Oh yeah, the
What?
Ergot, whose Sunday is named after. The day of the
there you
week,
go.
Sunday, is named after a demon named Ergot.
What?
Who, when possessed by Ergot, you
Surgat.
I think that's how it's
Yeah.
spelled. Yeah, I can look it up in a second here. But Ergot makes.
Don't worry, I got you.
Ergot's mission is to destroy the Sabbath. So basically, you get possessed by Ergot and you want to work through the weekend. That's his power. Can I just give you like a real quick rundown?
Please.
Sure, yeah.
Just please.
Just
Sure.
10 demons. Agares, I'm sorry, I don't know how to pronounce these. Agares. Is the
think
one
you're
that
right.
is the one that makes you literate in every language, but only teaches you the swear words and ethnic slurs.
That's my guy.
So you
my
become
guy.
a, quote, educated and vile.
Perfect. That's what I aspire to be on a daily basis.
There's Renove, Ronove.
Oh my God, I
Who
just had to
is-
swallow hard because I almost spewed beer all over
He
my
almost scream puked. So there's
I almost scream puked about the educated and vile demon. Wow.
Gack the fuck out of that microphone.
That is literally my possession if there's ever been one.
There's
God damn.
Renove, who is also known as the taker of old souls. This is a really funny one.
Ooh.
So
Doesn't
this
sound like it, Jesus, bro.
Just kills old people.
this one
Yeah, seriously.
reportedly instructs the person he inhabits about rhetoric and the art of insinuating themselves into other people's good graces. So basically, you become this really lovable person, but anyone who, and I'm not making this up, anybody who is looking older or a little poorly than you, once you leave, will be killed. Even friends and pets, it says. So if you meet somebody that you're having a good conversation with and they're a little bit older or like maybe a little sickly than you, when it's time for you to leave, they will die when you walk out of the door.
I would just like to clarify quickly that you are not making this up, but you are reading off of a BuzzFeed style article called "The 5 Best and Worst Demons to Be
Sure.
Possessed By."
I mean, find me a reliable source on demonic possession and I'll read
Good
from
point.
that.
I'm just saying.
The number one worst demon to be possessed by is obviously Beelzebub.
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 Fucking that guy.
That fucking guy.
Okay, now, best demons to be possessed by. There's Azazel.
That
who
sounds fun.
Is actually where the term scapegoat came from. So apparently back in the day,
Whoa.
villages used to prescribe all of their symbolic sins to one goat and then send it out into the woods to meet Azazel and be devoured by it. So Azazel is sort of like the harbinger of collective sin, who lives in the woods and eats goats. Or takes
People
goats.
historically have really hated goats.
Absolutely.
Yeah,
Must be the only thing they had like a plethora of.
I'm kind of glad that we've reclaimed the word goat as
I
it
fuck with
works.
goats. I think they're cool.
I do
Goats
too.
are cool.
A lot of hilarious goat videos on the internet, and we've reclaimed it as a phrase for greatest of all time, as it relates to music and sports and all kinds
I
of
support
things.
the goats.
Okay,
too.
so
Who to go?
this
Who to
is this is my favorite one. His name is Ben Tamalion. Ben. The name of this fucking spirit is Ben.
What's up, Ben?
So
Solid name.
human body,
Shout out to Ben.
wings, owl head, and rides a wolf.
Hold on. Repeat that.
Human body,
Yep.
wings, like angel wings.
Yep.
Owl head,
Mm-hmm.
sword, rides a wolf.
Ben
That
is
is-
fucking killing it.
Ben
Wow.
Tamalion. Or
Wow.
Tamalion.
That sounds like the best video game character that's ever been invented.
Check this out, though. There's not much information on Ben Tamalion, a demon who appears in Jewish mythology. He possesses a princess. Rabbi Shimon Bar Yochai walks up on the princess and says, "Ben Tamalion, go! Ben Tamalion, go!" And Ben Tamalion goes. How did the princess's father, a mighty emperor, know to get this particular rabbi? The princess was calling for the rabbi. So, this demon possesses you and causes you to scream out for the only person who is able to banish him.
Okay.
So you banish this demon by being possessed by them. And the only trace of itself that it leaves in you, and I'm not making this up, is a markedly decreased sense of anti-Semitism.
The guy is drunk, but there he goes.
So once
Real talk, true story.
this demon leaves you, you will hate Jews less. Is the power of this demon. Okay, couple more.
I guess.
Yeah.
I guess.
Good
like,
for Ben.
Yeah, I mean, Like if you had to be possessed and you could be instantly unpossessed and also get rid of any hidden anti-Semitism you might harbor. I guess
a very convenient demon.
In all intents and purposes, that's not the worst thing that could happen.
Okay, I'll just fly through these last ones. There's Andros gets in your head and gives you advice on how to kill people.
Wasn't Andros a character from Star Fox?
I'm sorry, very quickly.
Oh.
Why is that one of the better ones to be?
Well, I mean, it doesn't tell you to kill people. It tells you the best way to kill people.
Oh, so like if you got to get it done, it's going to help you get it done.
In a situation where you need, this would be a good demon to be possessed by if you were on a battlefield, if you're being, attacked or whatever. This is a demon who will help you learn the best way to kill people. It doesn't say you have to. It doesn't make you kill people.
Okay.
Last two, Asmodeus, the demon of carnal desire. This is the one who is afraid of birds and fish and water.
Sure. So you fish to get rid of
the jealous god.
Yep.
Last one is Belphegor. Belphegor is a demon who got tired of all the men in hell complaining about the fact that they were only there because of their wives. who was tired of being told
big problem
that all men,
this is your fault,
that all these men are in hell
this to me
because their marriages were so insane that it drove them to be sinners.
Well,
so Belphegor went to the surface of the earth to search for a happy married couple. The thing about the story is that he couldn't find one. So he was cursed to wander the earth trying to find a happy marriage, which he hasn't. But the random thing about this one is that according to some of the later Pope's proclamations, Satan has named this demon the ambassador to France. So this demon is Satan's ambassador to France.
Very sick
Satan
burn.
really fucks with France.
Which is ridiculous.
And or the Vatican super doesn't fuck with France.
But apparently is also the demon of sloth. So if you get possessed by this demon, you will try to make your marriage work and you will become lazy and you might have an affinity for Parisians.
Oh, well.
Sounds like me to a T.
So there's the 5 best and worst demons.
Nailed it.
Chuck.
Mason.
Yeah.
Thanks for yelling with us
and
laughing with us and playing
so
with us.
Fun.
I agree with you, man. This has been fun. Even when we yell, I think it's fun.
I think it's so cool to have a place, where you can just be a nerd.
Yeah.
And just talk about shit that no one else would ever want to hear about.
Yeah.
Hopefully people want to hear about it.
But apparently they do. Surprisingly, they do.
Sitting in a room full of people that don't want to hear about it, you're inviting those people to you.
Yeah.
Anybody who's interested in long-winded, nerdy conversations, come this way.
Come to us.
Join us. Join our cult.
And call us and leave us a voicemail. It doesn't have to be about anything.
I agree.
Just be anything.
I agree.
Speaking of, on the way out, we're going to play you one that is a follow-up to our What If You Joined a Cult episode from a few weeks back. So enjoy that. If you feel like sharing a story with us, go ahead and call us at the phone number that I can never remember.
Which is 612-246-4614.
That's the one.
That's the one. And
we'll talk to you next week.
We love you. Bye.
Peace.
Bye-bye.
Hey, yo, this is Adrian. Love the podcast, guys. Listening to every episode. It's fantastic. So right quick, I want to tell you a story about my interaction with a cult. Let me start with the fact that I have an anxiety disorder. So I didn't know I had an anxiety disorder at the time, but I have one. When I went to Uganda to work at a temple in Kampala, the capital, it didn't go well. So I left. But on my way home, I stopped in to visit my brother. My brother has been living in Prague, in the Czech Republic, for the last 15 years. So I go to see him. I spent 2 weeks with him. It's cool. My first day back, I've lost like 15 pounds. Africa was rough on this Mzungu. It was a tough time. So I go see my guy. We hang out, and the day I get there, he's like, tonight we're going to a party. At the time, I didn't drink. I was religious. I was an idiot. And I said, sure, why not? Let's do that. But I'm a little weary because I've been feeling kind of weird lately because my anxiety disorder was coming up. Takes me with his girlfriend. Just meet his girlfriend for the first time that night. I'm in the car with her. We're headed out to some place to party for the night, I guess. In there, we're talking. Me and her are chopping it up. It's all good. We're having a good time. And she turns to me at one point and starts talking about Turks. You know, Europe is pretty goddamn white, obviously. And she was telling me, you know, these Turks, like, they're no good. You can't trust Turks. They fuck up our schools. They fuck up our economy. They take care of our welfare. She was going on and on about Turks. And she saw my face, because I don't have a good poker face at all. And she was like, oh, no. I see it. Like, maybe I'm offending you, but don't worry. Turks, for me, are like Mexicans for you. And I just said, I like Mexicans. They do good things in my country. And she was like, she just kind of shut up after that. 10 minutes later, she goes on about Turks. And I was like, who the fuck is this beautiful, horrible racist? Anyway, we get there, and everybody's kind of like-minded. Like, we're chilling in this giant stone mansion. It's got to be like 200-300 years old, because everything over there is old as fuck. So I'm there, and this is like a fucking mansion. Nothing around us but forest and this creek. And all these young people are getting out, and they all know her. They're all cool with her. I was like, are they all like her? Because I really don't want to be here then. And we're chilling. Everybody's bringing the beer. They have like a little keg thing situation, like a pony keg coming in. And I'm just more and more now wanting to be there. In the Czech Republic, they don't really speak English either, so I can't speak Czech. That shit is hard as fuck to learn. So I was like, all right, I guess I can just chill out. Walk into this house, this mansion, and there's pictures all over the walls, but there's like no furniture. There's like a few chairs, a couch, but in every room there's 2 to 3 pictures, and they're all the same picture. They're of this white dude, older white dude. Some of them are paintings, but most of them are pictures. But they're all the same. It's all the same pose. Like, you know that famous picture of George Washington? It's like that, but in every room 2 to 3 times. And I asked one of the few dudes who speaks English, I'm like, who's this guy? Like, I didn't say it was weird, but I was freaked out. And they're like, oh, that's so-and-so. He's a 17th level Buddha. And I said, oh, okay. What? And they're like, no, don't worry. Like, he's a 17th level Buddha. He's ascended nirvana, blah, 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 blah. I was starting to feel really anxious and like, I got to get the fuck out of here. Something creepy is going on here. And that woman telling me all that racist shit, and I was like, is that part of this? And I just felt scared. So we're sitting there, and I'm looking at this picture, and I'm just staring at this dude. And I keep thinking of Ghostbusters 2. Ryan, I'm sure you haven't seen Ghostbusters 2, but it's a decent movie. You should check it out. It's this guy in this frame, and he's controlling like what's going on in New York, and he's like the scariest looking motherfucker in the world. I'm like, this dude looks just like that dude from Ghostbusters 2. Anyway, I go upstairs after the sun sets. I'm tired. I just don't want to be around these people. My brother's all about this fine-ass racist girl, and I'm just like, all right, I don't know anymore, man. And my brother hands me like a mattress, cot, I don't know, just some padding type of thing. Like one of those things you had in gym class when you were in elementary school, like just a mat. And he's like, yeah, go upstairs, second floor, everybody's sleeping. So I say, all right. I go up. It's just one big room, this giant mansion. It's just one big room on the second floor. There's no third floor. And I lay down, and I'm like, all right, I got to go to sleep. If I can make it till tomorrow, I can go home. You know, crazy Ghostbusters 2 motherfuckers just like staring at me the whole time. I fucking hated it. I'm laying there, and then I hear like people making out, and then people start fucking, and then people are moaning, and I sit up, and I look around, and people are fucking each other. They're making out and fucking all over the second floor, and with Ghostbusters 2 just staring down at us. Scared the shit out of me, and I flipped and ran downstairs, found my brother by the creek outside of the house, and said, I gotta go home. And he was like, well, I'm hammered. I can't bring you home. So can you spend the night here? I said, fuck no. He said, all right, here's what I can do. I can drive you half a mile to the train station and get you back to Prague by yourself. I said, that's cool. I'm in. So I did that. I left, never talked to those people again, except for my brother, of course. and it was a scary fucking experience. So yeah, that's my story about Cult. Love y'all's show. Keep it up. Have a great night. Peace.
Thanks for listening to the What If podcast. For show notes, transcripts, and links from today's episodes, visit whatifpodcast.com.